Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Network Africa right here on Channels Television with me, Cynthia Are. Coming up on the program, Tunisia has announced plans to build a wall along its border with Libya to counter the threats from jihadist militants. Then rebels in the world's newest country warned President Salva Kiir of even more violence if he stays president of South Sudan. And Egypt continues its crackdown on journalists, and it's not limited to the Al Jazeera staff. Again, you're welcome to Network Africa, right here on Channels Television. Topping our news today is what's happening in Tunisia. Almost 2 weeks after the massacre in the Sousse resort, which left over 30 people dead, the government is doing what it can to ensure that history does not repeat itself. Tunisia has announced plans to build a wall along its border with Libya to counter the threats from jihadist militants. According to the Prime Minister, it would stretch 160 kilometers inland from the coast and be completed by the end of this year. The gunman who carried out the massacre is believed to have received training from Libya. Tunisia declared a state of emergency following the attack last month. Well, President Pierre Nkurunziza is not the only East African leader seeking to extend his tenure in office. His Rwandan counterpart has similar aspirations. As a result, Rwanda's main opposition party has opened a case in the Supreme Court on seeking to prevent constitutional change that would allow President Paul Kagame to run for a third term, 7 years in office. The debate about term limits and challenges to veteran leaders has fled in several places in Africa. The United States and other Western nations have been pressing African leaders to stick to constitutional rules on presidential terms. Senior members of the ruling party have urged scrapping of the two-term limit, and Parliament has said it would debate public petitions calling for President Kagame to stay beyond 2017. On his part, President Kagame says he opposes a change but is open to being convinced. The rebel leader of the world's newest country has some strong warnings for the sitting president, Salva Kiir. Rebel leader Riek Machar warns that there could be renewed fighting if President Kiir continues to be president. He insists that the president's new 3-year mandate is illegal and the people have the right to rise up and overthrow his regime. Riek Machar's statement was delivered in Nairobi as South Sudan's parliament speaker formally extended Kiir's term for 3 more years as approved by lawmakers in a March vote. Rebels say Parliament did not have the right to take such an action in a nation that has been mired in conflict since December 2013. Well, despite the lapses in achieving the Millennium Development Goals regarding hunger, the number of people living in extreme poverty has more than halved to 836 million from 1.9 billion, which was the case back in 1990. That information was given in a United Nations report on the Millennium Development Goals, also known as MDGs. However, there is more to be done, as hundreds of millions more of people, they're still poor and suffer from hunger.
According to the United Nations, the number of people living in extreme poverty, that's on approximately less than $1.25 a day, has more than halved to 836 million from 1.9 billion in 1990. This progress was highlighted in the report of the 8 development goals set out in the Millennium Declaration in 2000. World leaders are due to adopt a new set of development objectives known as the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, at a UN summit in September. The new goals aim to eradicate extreme poverty by 2030, in rejecting the criticism that the new 17 goals and 169 targets, which range from ending hunger to combating climate change, are too many and too costly. The UN said goal setting had succeeded in lifting millions of people out of poverty. With targeted interventions and political will, even the poorest people can make progress, it said.
The report confirms that the global efforts to achieve the goals have saved millions of lives and improved conditions for millions more around the world. The MDGs helped to lift more than 1 billion people out of extreme poverty and make major inroads against hunger. They have enabled more than 2.6 billion people to gain access to an improved drinking water source and more girls to attend school than ever before.
In the analysis, it was noted that across the globe, women continue to experience discrimination in access to work, wages, and decision-making, despite gaining ground in parliamentary representation in 90% out of the 174 countries analyzed in the report. But progress has been uneven across regions and countries, the UN said, and the new Sustainable Development Agenda should focus on inequalities to improve the lives of the poorest and most vulnerable people. Thankfully, the number of children who are reported to be dying before their 5th birthday has fallen by more than half since 1990. Yet, 16,000 children still die each day, mostly from preventable causes.
Progress has not reached everyone. Too many people have been left behind, particularly the poorest and those disadvantaged because of their sex, age, disability, ethnicity, or geographic location. Too many women and children continue to die during pregnancy or from childbirth-related complications. And too many people lack adequate sanitation facilities, especially in rural areas.
Thanks to investments in fighting diseases such as HIV, AIDS, and malaria, the new HIV infections fell by 40% between 2000 and 2013, and the number of people dying from malaria has fallen almost by half since 1990.
Well, coming up on Network Africa, the Egyptian government continues its crackdown on the press, and it may soon be illegal to publish news the Egyptian government does not like. Details in just a moment.